Let's talk about mastering the art of quiet confidence and the 6 ways that you can do this. Grab your cup of tea and let's dive into it. Number 1 is raise your value, not just your voice. I know this is a potentially unpopular opinion for a lot of people, but one of the things that used to frustrate me somewhat through my corporate career was the emphasis that a lot of leaders placed on the value of having a strong voice. They really focused on that being the key to building your personal brand. But what I feel when leaders focus on this, or when people in personal branding really emphasize the importance of this, is that it misses the point about focusing on the value that you are delivering as well. Because there is no point shouting into a void if no one is actually connecting with the messages that you represent. It's not about having a loud voice that is performative. It is about having a valuable, well-formed voice. Because a performative personal brand isn't necessarily one that has presence. So how can you communicate with substance as opposed to just being a spectacle? And this is where I think that we need to focus more on the idea of showing as opposed to the idea of shouting. How are you showing the value that you bring to your workplace, to your career, to the marketplace? How are you highlighting the contributions that you have made and the impact that you have had, or the teams that you have been a part of that have delivered particular outcomes? How are you giving back or giving away as much of your expertise as you can? It's less about you having a strong voice and more about the value that you are creating. Number 2 is show up with presence, not performance. In an ideal world, your personal brand strategy might mean that you show up on Instagram, on TikTok, on LinkedIn, on your podcast, on your YouTube channel, on your blog, on your personal brand website, all of the things that are highly recommended when it comes to building your personal brand strategy. But in the real world, all of those things may not necessarily be, number 1, achievable or sustainable for you to be able to do. And they also might not resonate with you. So I personally recommend that a better strategy is to focus on the platforms that are where your audience or where your community shows up, number 1, but they're also the places that you most resonate with. Where do you feel most comfortable? Because you are going to have a more sustainable strategy if you can show up on those platforms with a genuine presence and interest in that space, instead of just trying to perform on those spaces just because you feel like you have to. It's better to show up in a meaningful way on less platforms than trying to be everything to everyone in all of the places, some of which are places that you don't necessarily want to be. Build a personal brand strategy that feels good for you. And this leads me to tip number 3, which is to play to your strengths. Some people love writing. They love the written word and they are really good at crafting compelling communications. Other people might like the spoken word instead. They're great at speaking and they can communicate with resonance and they can connect with people in a really engaging way. You don't have to love all of those things. So when you are picking a platform, for example, that you want to show up on and build a long-term strategy on, consider what your strengths are in particular in building a sustainable strategy. If you love writing, for example, you might consider writing articles on your LinkedIn or on your blog, which is what I do. If you prefer to be speaking to people, then then naturally you might fit better with having a YouTube channel or a podcast. But the point is to really identify what your strengths are as a part of your strategy. Don't just focus on the advice that you are given, because that advice isn't necessarily tailored to your specific strengths and your circumstances. And one of the biggest tragedies would be in pursuing the wrong direction, losing some of the impact that you can potentially have when you are playing to your strengths. This leads me to something that I read many years ago that really resonated with me, and it is this animal fable story. I think it's called Animal School. And it talks about these animals that go to school. And as a part of their schooling, they have to really focus on overcoming some of their potential weaknesses. So, a duck, for example, might need to run a lot to make up for some of their shortcomings in this space. And in that process, they end up developing webbed feet in a way that actually harms the abilities that they have in being such a strong natural swimmer. And it always resonated with me because I feel that it is a really interesting concept. If you follow this channel, you would know that I am all about the growth mindset and constantly trying to push yourself to that next level of your development or your goals or outside of your comfort zone. But you also don't want to push your comfort zone so far that you lose what your zone of genius is. So this is just something to always keep in mind when you are looking to develop new skills and to develop in new areas, to not be so focused on overcoming what you perceive as weaknesses that you lose sight of your strengths. You want to make sure that you are always guarding or always improving on those strengths that you bring to the marketplace, while also developing in those other areas where you can as well. Number 4 is don't chase or replace. I know that this might be a potentially uncommon opinion for a lot of people, and for some people it's not going to apply because there are different strategies involved in certain industries and for certain professions or businesses. But I personally, particularly in the last few years, have really tried to focus more on creating a personal brand that attracts people to my messages. An element of that is not just chasing people all the time. So it is not sending hundreds of LinkedIn invites just so you can increase a number on your profile. That is just a vanity metric anyway. And the same might go for your pitches or your proposals. If, for example, there was something that you sent that you didn't hear back about, and it was really just with that other person to contact you if they were interested in extending that relationship with you, I'm personally now in a space where I would just say that I wouldn't actually be chasing those people. And I know that that is an unpopular opinion. And I know in some cases, yes, a little prompt can be the difference between winning business or not getting that particular business or having that relationship. But I also just think that there is something so important about valuing yourself and valuing what you have to offer, what you have to bring to a relationship as a person or as a professional, where you don't need to be chasing someone. If you think, for example, if this was like dating, would you be chasing someone that is showing zero interest in you or is not giving you the respect that you deserve in communicating with you in a timely way? When you connect with the right people who resonate with what it is that you are communicating or the value that you have to offer, you won't actually have to chase those people. There will be communication that they respect and they value, which means that you don't have to chase, you can replace. When one door closes, it makes way for the right people to enter into your world. Tip number 5, I'm going to leave super simple, and that is to speak last. I've talked about what I feel is the cliche of having a strong voice, but I want you to think about the value of listening aggressively instead and not having to feel like you need to be the strongest voice in the room, but the value of speaking last and communicating with emotional resonance and to have an impact. Tip number 6 has become one of my favorite sayings, and that is to build in silence. And it relates to this idea that when you build in silence, they don't know what to attack. What is something that you could work on, whether it is a skill, an interest, or a field of expertise that you can build in silence without having to communicate what that is to the entire world? Not all of your personal development or your personal brand strategy needs a press statement. What can you build in silence for yourself and the benefit that you can bring to the marketplace in the long term? Quiet confidence isn't about being timid, it is about self-trust and knowing that your work and your value is the statement. Thanks so much. Subscribe for more like this, and I'll see you in the next episode.